that time. Grossi, though, used extremely strong language when he addressed the UN Security Council, reminding member states that nuclear facilities must never be attacked under any circumstances because consequences of such attacks can cross borders and harm people and the environment far beyond the original target. He warned that strikes on nuclear sites could create radioactive releases with grave consequences both inside the attacked country and beyond.
Another issue is the idea of profit-driven foreign policy. Critics argue that for private contractors, war is not just a necessity, it's a business. This creates a dangerous incentive structure where prolonged conflict can be financially beneficial. As a result, some believe this contributes to the interventionist policies, endless wars, and even exaggeration of threats to justify massive military budgets. Finally, the revolving door between government and defense companies adds to the controversy. Officials frequently move between positions in Congress, the military, and private defense firms. Many former government employees go on to become highly paid lobbyists or executives, raising concerns about conflict of interest in what some describe as legalized bribery. In conclusion, the combination of weak oversight, profit incentives tied to war, and blurred lines between public service and private firms has made the military-industrial complex controversial. And if these issues are concerning, they are only part of a larger picture, one that also includes growing fears about government surveillance.
It's tragic that the commander-in-chief is not simply somebody who never served, because I don't think that's a requirement to be president. I don't. I think there are other ways to serve your country, but he's never served his country in any way, shape, or form. And as he's demonstrated time and time again, he has contempt for service members. He has contempt for their sacrifices. He is completely frivolous about the way he's going about this. There's no real rationale for this war of choice. He had nothing meaningful or comforting to say after we lost 6 service members over the weekend, and 4 of them were returned to the airbase this morning, and not one person from the Trump regime was there to greet the remains. Not Donald, not the vice president, not the secretary of defense, nobody. And that is such a disgrace. It sends such a horrific message, because not only can he not tell us why we are sacrificing blood and treasure, he's not going to do anything to help us get through it when we lose our own soldiers. He is an utter disgrace.
Mary, I'm so glad you brought that up, because I had the honor to witness the most solemn moment ever in my life at Andrews Air Force Base, the peaceful transfer of remains after Benghazi. Colin Powell was there, Hillary Clinton was there, Susan Rice was there, everyone was there. It was my pool day, and we didn't know where we were going or what was happening, and it happened. It was the most, I get chills thinking about it.
Yeah.
You serve your country, and when you lose, there's no greater offering than to serve your country and then to die for your country.
Yeah.
And for a president and his staff and others from other administrations and other parties across the aisle to come and say thank you.
Yeah.
And then this president, y'all, I'm done.
Well, and what's worse is that in announcing the loss of life because of his...
If you say Israel dragged us into this war, that makes you anti-Semitic, Harris.
Yeah, I mean, a few things to say on that. And I do think there's one side in which Israel did drag us into the war, and the other way where you have to look at, okay, Trump does what people tell him. Why was he exclusively surrounded by cabinet officials and media figures who were sympathetic to the Israeli position? There is an American side to this.
Agreed.
And I want to add something else, that if we want to be a little optimistic about what distinguishes this moment from the Gaza deals and Lebanon deals that, of course, became
violated,
worthless and violated, is that Trump doesn't care what happens to Palestinians in Gaza. He doesn't care what happens to civilians in Lebanon. He does clearly have a big sensitivity to the price of oil, to the S&P 500. And so Iran closing the Strait of Hormuz again is something that catches his attention in the way that dead Arab civilians do not. And so that's the only thing that gives me some hope that he may be more willing to apply pressure for, I'd say, the second time on Netanyahu in this case.
Swin, I've got to ask you a very important question that we kind of have reported on today's Ateo. We're going to be carrying on tomorrow. I've been going on about it for, 11 years, since the man came down the escalator at Trump Tower in 2015, which is he's manifestly unfit to run a school board, let alone the United States government. He proved that this morning with the single most deranged genocidal public statement ever made by a United States president, certainly in modern American history, where he said that this would be the end. He was going to end Iranian civilization, for which it would not come back. Shocked a lot of people, not Republicans in Congress, but everyone else with a brain and a heart. A lot of talk of 25th Amendment, a lot of Democrats saying now is the time for 25th Amendment. Ironically, the person who would have to do that is J.D. Vance, who's busy in Hungary trying to re-elect a fascist, Viktor Orban. But talk to me about what you're hearing about people around Trump, around his mental health. I mean, I'm sorry, this guy is not all there. He was never all there, but clearly he's worse than he was before.
Well, for even the casual observer, I think it's extraordinarily difficult to figure out where Donald Trump's decline starts and where his never having ever inclined begins.